As you may know, the very next line of John's Gospel, which we don't read today, but which we do read every Good Friday, when we read the Passion according to John every year, the very next line is Pilate responding to Jesus. Truth? What is truth? Actually, a good question. Ordinary people, but of course philosophers too, throughout the ages have sought truth, sought wisdom. That's what the word means, philosopher. And of course it's not something you can arrive at. It's not real, existential, powerful, meaningful truth. Not something you can arrive at intellectually. Besides, as you're very well aware, intellectual pursuits of that sort are guided both in their premises and their conclusions by a lot more than just pure logic. So it's a difficult task to discover the truth in a meaningful way. Perhaps for us Christians, the answer to follow Jesus' lead today is the truth is not a thing, especially not something you think. Truth is a person. And Jesus himself says in the same Gospel of John, does he not? I am the way, I am the truth, I am the divine name, I am the life. So the truth is a person, which means, of course, it's personal. Truth involves something personal, relationships, meaning. But it also means it's something vital. A person is not a thought. A person is alive, and their whole life, Christ's whole life, expresses the truth that he is. So we'll find the truth of Christ, truth which is Christ, in his teaching, but also in his way of life, his life choices, if you like. And so it's not something we could expect because it shows us what it means to be God in human form. Or more apropos, teaches us what it means to be truly human. What is truth for humanity? Humans created in the image of God and sharing God's own life. So what is it then? What is the truth about kingship? The very thing we're celebrating today, which we think we understand conceptually, which means, of course, we don't understand it. And we can't really understand it that way. What is the divine revelation of the true human meaning of kingship? And we shouldn't be surprised if we're surprised by what we find. And in fact, Jesus distanced himself clearly. John's Gospel is again a good example. He fled into the wilderness when they were about to make him king, after the multiplication of the loaves, because he knew that would mess everything up. He was not going to be a king in the expectation of a political Messiah or any other human standard of kingship. He fled from that. And even at the moment of his arrest, as his followers were about to fight, Peter cutting off the ear of the high priest's servant, Jesus says, put that away. I could even now, he says, call down from my Father 10 legions of angels to save me and fight for me. Well, what good would that be? How then would the scriptures be fulfilled? He says, how would the truth about me be evident if I did that? All too predictable thing. So Jesus, to today's gospel, dodges the question, who says that I'm the king? Are you saying this of yourself? You say that I'm the king. because he didn't want to fall into the trap of human ideas of kingship. And again he says, if my kingdom were of this world, my followers would be fighting. Because that's what followers do and what kings do, they fight. He says that's not what it's all about. What is it all about? Well, Jesus clearly by his example, but then also by his teaching and his words, makes perfectly clear to us in the gospel what real reigning, what real kingship is about. Remember when he says to his disciples who were asking to sit at his right hand and his left in glory, he says, you don't get it. You know how those among the Gentiles, among the pagans who are in power, they lord it over them, he says, and make their authority felt. You know, that's way of being king. It shall not be like that among you, he says. Rather, who would be first among you must be the servant of everybody. Whoever would be great among you must be the slave of all. When have we ever put that into effect? We're too busy arguing about minor matters and forgetting the major. Straining out gnats and swallowing camels. When do we take that seriously? For Jesus goes on to say, the Son of Man himself, the Son of Man who the prophet David says is coming on the clouds of heaven, which Jesus himself quotes at his trial. He is a king, but the Son of Man himself, he specifies, has not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. That's what Jesus' kingship means, service. So when the great hymn of Philippians says, Jesus did not think equality with God something to be grasped at, but emptied himself, taking the form of a slave, which is exactly what he said he was there to be, taking the form of a slave, and still further humbled himself even more, becoming obedient to death on a cross. Therefore, the hymn says, God exalted him and gave him the name above every name, Lord. But let's not misunderstand that either. It's not that he kind of played at being humble for a little while, and then as a reward, he gets all the glory afterwards. Anyway, nonsense. The whole point is that the giving, the pouring out, the service is the glory. That's Christ's glory. That's the truth about kingship, which you would apparently not get on our own, which we still haven't figured out or tried to follow. That's what it means for God to be king, for Christ to be king, and it's what it should mean for us to reign and be king. And we are called to that. The Second Vatican Council and its decree on religious freedom, which we were studying here yesterday, reminds us that Jesus in the gospel never imposed, coerced anyone to believe in it, never lorded it over, to use Jesus' words, but always appealed to the heart, to faith, to surrender, as he himself poured himself out and surrendered to us, to serve us, and to serve his Father. And it goes on to say, the council does, we haven't really followed this very well all the time through history, have we? Never mind political society, but even in the church. What image of kingship and ruling have we? Do we lord it over? Do we control? Do we have charge? It's not what God does, not what Christ did. That's what we're called to do. Because as soon as we adopt, on any level, political, economic, ecclesiastical, familial, As soon as we adopt on any level the notion of dominion and control, of power, we have fallen from the truth. And violence will follow. As soon as you have dominion, control, and power, violence, emotional, physical, is inevitable. Inevitable. There are no exceptions. None. Anytime power is dominion and control instead of service, or more than service, there will be violence and oppression in any sphere. And we have fallen from the truth. And we are called to be kings and prophets and priests in the image and with and within Jesus Christ, as the second reading announces at the end. Jesus, who poured himself out and delivered us by pouring out his blood, has made us kings and priests in him, it says. And that's what our baptismal liturgy says. We are called to be kings, priests, and prophets in this world, in his image and with him. So what does that mean? It means self-offering, service, compassion, mercy, love, justice, and peace. Not being in control or in charge in the way we think. When are we going to get this gospel message and stop arguing about things that matter so much less? If we get this message, you might understand how to solve all the other problems. Truly, in Christ's perspective. But we got to get this right. What is truth? What does Jesus have to say? What does Jesus have to show? What is the truth of power? Can we speak the truth to power? Can we speak the truth about power? Can we be kings as he is, slaves of everyone? What is truth? Answer it for yourself.